Oops, I signed too fast. Sorry. So again, in easy sign language. So, my mother gave birth to 2 children, my brother, who is hearing, and me, who is deaf. But nobody noticed that until I was 2 years old. The doctors in Luxembourg thought I had normal hearing, but my grandfather found out that there was something wrong with me. Why so late? Well, because I followed my brother everywhere. I did what he did. Until I was 16 years old, I couldn't sign. That's how it was at the Centre de Logopädie in Luxembourg. Nobody knew sign language, and there were no sign language interpreters. No offer for better, full communication. I had to learn to read from lips, for years. Here in the school in Luxembourg, there was oral instruction. There was no sign language. Without sign language, life was very difficult and laborious. All communication took place mainly through lip reading. When I was little, I had to practice speaking in front of the mirror, learning to pronounce words and sounds that I never heard. I was often frustrated during my childhood because I understood little and was not always understood. Other children didn't let me play with them. In order to promote and facilitate my socialization, I got a dog. Why wasn't sign language used in school back then? To understand that, we need to go back to 1880, when the Milan Congress for hearing impaired educators took place. Back then, these educators decided to ban sign language in schools, because they thought it would be better if deaf children learned the spoken language. From then on, the hearing impaired children had to learn to speak, to read from lips. They were not allowed to use sign language. Before that, there were hearing impaired people who used sign language, who were lawyers, doctors, or teachers. That was normal. For years, it was forbidden to use sign language, a hard time for those concerned. Only in 2010 did educators apologize for this bad decision in Vancouver. After all, they had denied many deaf children a good education. The change came from the linguist William Stokoe, who, in 1960, showed that sign language is a complete and equal language. Then, the countries in Europe slowly began to study sign language. As I said, it was only when I went to a deaf and hard of hearing school in Germany at the age of 16 that I got to know and love sign language. Because my parents didn't want me to go to work when I was 16. That was just luck. Since then, my language skills have gone uphill and I gained a lot of new knowledge. Before that, I was unsuspecting and didn't even know that sign language existed, a fully fledged language. I was so happy. Everywhere in school people were signing and I could learn a lot. Finally, a real education for me. Finally, I could understand and I felt good. With sign language, I could learn many new things and understand and grasp more knowledge. I am happy to see my friends every time and to be able to freely talk with them without lip reading. Finally free, because in everyday life, I'm mostly confronted with hearing people who cannot sign, and that is very exhausting and makes me tired. The eyes, but also in general, one is often offside, forgotten and lonely. Some deaf people had the same experience as me when they went to school in Germany. We then brought the signs with us to our friends in Luxembourg. Not everyone went to Germany to go on to school. We then showed our beautiful sign language here. That was unfortunately very hard. Other people had a different opinion. They thought it would be more important to learn to speak. We have always shown how important sign language is for us. So that we feel comfortable, we need sign language. It is important that everyone respects that. The deaf and hard of hearing are visually oriented. By simply reading lips, they understand only about 30% of what is spoken. Reading lips alone is not full communication. Lip reading leads to frequent misunderstandings. 70% of what is said has to be put together like individual pieces of a puzzle. Children are very eager to learn. Especially with younger children, it would be important to be taught by a teacher with whom they could build a relationship. In order to build a relationship, you need a common, functioning communication. For 4 years, Jacqueline Gutman-Winnendy and I have been offering DGS courses for teachers, pedagogues and educators, for beginners and advanced learners at the Centre de Logopédie. In January 2020, it will be 10 years that we will be holding DGS courses for the city of Luxembourg. DGS, German Sign Language. It is nice that more and more hearing people are interested in DGS. Unfortunately, they forget a lot. If they have no contact with deaf people and cannot practice it often. Today, the Centre de Logopédie is different and better than it was in my time. But a lot still has to be built up since the recognition of German Sign Language on July 24, 2018. This law demands a lot in the area of education for hearing impaired children. We, the sign language community, are proud to have made it because it was a hard time. We have fought for more than 10 years for the recognition of German Sign Language. We have achieved a great deal, but there is still much to be done to give all people in Luxembourg access to information. So that people do not forget us again and again and think that we also have a right to information and communication. Luxembourg is almost the last country to recognize sign language. Already in 1988, the European Parliament demanded that the respective national sign language be recognized as a fully-fledged language in all member states. In some EU states, this has long since happened. Unfortunately, there are still problems with sign language interpreters, especially lack of flexibility. In order to get an interpreter in Luxembourg, you have to ask at least a week or more in advance. It is really a tough job for sign language interpreters, also written interpreters, because a lot has to be translated. DGS, German language, French language or Luxembourg language, and vice versa. In Luxembourg, the situation is more difficult due to the multilingualism, both for the persons concerned and for the interpreters. There are currently only 2 interpreters in Luxembourg, both employed at the Centre de Logopédie. So if you need an interpreter privately, you usually get one from Germany. If an event is in French, a translator must also come to translate from French into German. Quite complicated. There is still a lot to do. But at least, you will now better understand how we feel when we cannot participate in a conversation. Finally, I would like to teach you 3 simple but useful signs. Please, simply imitate what I will be doing. This sign means thank you. This sign means I love you. We use this sign also when we are happy about something. This sign means applause.